1. Our story begins in my late freshman, early sophomore year of high school, with me as a somewhat socially awkward teen beginning to go through puberty. As far as neckbeards go, I had pretty much started to fit the bill. I was a huge nerd. I loved video games, comic books, anime, and had some rather questionable personal hygiene. I was on the heavy side, had a greasy face, hair, and a little bit of acne, and a neckbeard beginning. Pretty much your typical neckbeard in training, aside from the lack of a fedora. But it's the overall energy given off that matters. I was pretty alright in terms of behavior, but a little rash and immature, with a slight temper, but I guess it is to be expected of that age. But all that poor decision-making got turned up to 11 once C had entered the picture. C being a good friend of mine at the time, and still to this day. She was small for her age, and wore glasses. She also liked to draw, watched anime, cosplayed sometimes, and was even a gamer. Prime neckbeard bait. It was around this time that I started to have a crush on her, and this was only made worse by the fact that she and her boyfriend had recently broken up. I had told our mutual friend M about this, who at first seemed to be cool with this and wanted to see how it played out. I had started liking C more and chatting with her online in hopes of increasing my chances with her. And at first, it seemed to be going pretty well, and the feelings seemed mutual, or so I thought, which only seemed that way because maybe she was only trying to be polite after I tried to comfort her when she had an anxiety attack, which, in hindsight, was a bad idea. Whole other story. Which was when I also began stalking her on all social media behind her back, where I had saved all the pictures she had posted of her cosplay in a folder on my PC to fap to. This was just the beginning, though. It was around Christmas time and I had decided to gather the courage to confess to her over an early present. So I decided on what happened to be one of the most typical neckbeard things to give her. A katana. Not a real one, but still, I shit you not, a fucking katana. Jesus, what was I thinking? I wrapped my gift and stuck a letter confessing my feelings to her. The time to do the deed came and I pussied out at the last minute, removing the love letter and asking M to give her the gift for me, which somewhat turned out to be better in the long run, since it pretty much saved my friendship with her, since he knew it was a bad idea and didn't give it to her. Fast forward a couple of months, and I learned that C had a new boyfriend. Here's where things go slightly downhill. I come up with a plan to break them up and basically ask one of my friends to help me with it. Long story short, the plan fails and we were lucky it didn't backfire. If stalking her online wasn't enough, for some reason I then began stalking her around the campus of our school. My neckbeard transformation was almost complete. She then begins to notice this and confronts me about it in private, and politely asks me to fuck off and stop with the stalking. This was enough to make me realize what I was doing, which cleared my pubescent mind, and then I apologized. We patched things up after a while, and we're still good friends to this day. There was one positive thing to come from this, though. At the time, it inspired me to lose weight, improve my hygiene, and take up a few hobbies. I started getting into fitness and never stopped after that. It at least helped me realize what I was passionate about, and I still have the same interest to this day. 2. For background, this all happened during my freshman year of community college during Halloween. So at my college, you're allowed to dress up in costume for Halloween, as long as it's appropriate and doesn't contain weapons, etc. For Halloween, I decided to dress up as Goku, since I'm a huge fan of Dragon Ball. Everything starts off pretty well, because some people recognize my costume, and I even got asked for a picture too. So nothing out of the norm. But then one of my friends on campus asked if I wanted to meet up since I don't start class for a couple more hours. So I decided to meet up with him. While we were hanging out, he tells me about his group of friends who happen to have a huge interest in anime and nerd culture, and he asks if I want to meet them. Sadly, I did make the mistake of saying yes. We met up with them at the cafeteria to, lo and behold, a whole table full of neckbeards. Most of them were in black robes or capes, and some even had top hats on and whatnot. One of them started freaking out when he saw my Goku costume. To those of you who don't know what LARPing is, it stands for Live Action Roleplay. Before I could even respond, he proceeds to get into character immediately. He's dressed up in a black cape and even brought a fake sword on campus too. He claims to be a vampire who can't die from the sun and is practically invincible to everything. He even shows me how his actual teeth look like they have fangs. But the whole time I just stood there quiet, not knowing how to comprehend everything that is happening. But before I could react, he proceeds to try to grab my prop attached to my wrist. I immediately stop him before he could even try to pull it out. But he acts like nothing's wrong and that he just wanted to try it out. At this point I'm just speechless at how he thinks it's okay to just grab things before asking first. He then proceeds to take a bite out of my lunch I had in front of me. I stop him before he's about to take another bite of my food, and he asks if we could arm wrestle for another bite of my food. At this point, I'm just done with his BS and just throw out that part of my lunch. I left for class right after hoping to never encounter him again. However, fast forward a couple months, I notice him at one of the food trucks on campus and I immediately turn away before he would notice. However, he immediately recognized me and proceeded to yell out at me, addressing me as Goku, and begins to talk really loudly about our epic battle between Goku and a vampire. As soon as I got my food, I immediately rush over to one of the buildings on campus, enjoying my food in peace. Luckily, we haven't had any interactions for the past couple months, but I'm worried that I'll run into him again on campus, as I'm still attending this college. 3. This is a story of puberty going very wrong. My elementary school years went by pretty okay. During that period, I was a very violent child. I'd constantly get into fights with my peers and cause all sorts of mayhem. You must understand that I come from a very, very different culture than what you have in the US. In my culture, it is normal for male children to act violently and get into fights all the time. Parents don't really encourage it, but they don't really prevent it either. School also doesn't sanction such behavior. There is no crying to teachers or your parents. If you get beat up at the school, you suck it up and man up. However, this wasn't the case everywhere in hometown. The western part of the city had a reputation for being more civilized than the barbaric eastern part. Children over there weren't violent at all. Why am I telling you this? Well, it is because after finishing elementary school, I went to high school in a western part of town, and I had a huge social disadvantage from the very start. I tried my best to behave and act normal, but everyone else in my class looked down upon me and considered me a savage who was better left alone. I've had a hard time adjusting to these new surroundings, which led me to hanging out with the wrong crew, read more civilized people, which in turn slowly led to my transition into a neckbeard. I was never shy nor socially awkward in any way that neckbeards usually are around other people. Quite the opposite, in fact. I'm a shameless bastard that got me into too many shitty situations to list here. Things that I remember doing as a dumb neckbeard child. I used to love fedoras, although I have never owned one. We don't really have fedoras to buy where I'm from, but I remember thinking that as far as hats go, they were the best darn thing after Indiana Jones' hat. Which I still think looks pretty fucking cool. A friend of mine had some fedoras, and whenever we went out, I'd borrow them and act like a gentleman, even going so far as to call girls milady. Note that we don't have neckbeards where I'm from, not like in the US, and I've never heard the term before. Acting like one just came naturally to me at that age, and it seemed pretty cool. It wasn't cool. I adored anime. I used to think that it was the best thing ever made. I even, to my great shame, joined the local anime club and thought about studying Japanese. Luckily, I grew out of it. I think that one of the main factors in my growing out of being a neckbeard was cutting off everything that had anything to do with that cancer. I remember going to the local anime club and trying to hit on girls by speaking broken Japanese that I've heard in Naruto. It makes me want to punch high school me. I used to draw it a lot, and by drawing it I mean printing manga panels, putting them under a blank sheet of paper and tracing them. You know, like all great artists do. Horrible, horrible dating habits. Neckbeards are usually socially awkward around women. I was everything but socially awkward. I was beaming with confidence, which led into me making some pretty stupid decisions. I remember one time when I used to try to convince this girl from another school to break up with her boyfriend because I'd treat her better. Yikes. Once I practically stalked a girl in the other class, taking notes about what she's into regarding books, music, going out and other stuff like I was planning to kidnap her. and go full Joseph Fritzl on her underage ass. I've started buying all this merch with logos and images of bands that she was into, playing their songs very loudly on my phone during every class break, in hope that she will get lured in by it and take notice of me. It didn't work, obviously, so I quickly found another victim, as all neckbeards do. I'd met this girl who was really into poetry, so I also got into it. I can't find any of it anymore, but from what I remember, it wasn't as bad as it was cringy. One of my best friends was into it as well, so you had two neckbeards hanging out, critiquing each other's work and swapping notes on how to write better poetry. Piss poor hygiene. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. I was so bad at keeping hygiene that I got removed from the classroom on several occasions. Everyone but me seemed to notice this. I can't really tell what caused me to not care much about it. I guess I just liked smelling the way that I've acted, like a piece of shit. This post has been going on for a while, so I'll wrap it up here. Consider this more of an introduction to what I was like as a dumb child. I have more actual stories that I'll gladly share with you later when I find the time to write them. Lastly, how did I grow out of this phase? It kinda happened naturally when I switched schools and started hanging out with people who were more like the actual me. Like every man, I discovered the greatness of alcohol, another thing that is very much glorified in my culture. We drink all the time. A good portion of our women actually measure your worth as a man by how much you can drink. I ditched anime completely. I started working out, not that I was even remotely fat, and I started going out more. Over time, I just kinda grew out of being a neckbeard. Now, after a pretty wild life, I've settled down, and I've practically been married for a few years now. Practically because we've never actually gone through with the actual ceremony, although we're actively planning to do it next year. Looking back, I dread to think what my life could have been if I'd never changed my neckbeard ways. Anyway, that's all for now. See ya. 4. So I am at college, already the second semester. And through that time period I meet a lot of wonderful people. But N ain't one. In the beginning of the course, I actually thought N was a cool guy. We shared some interests like anime and video games, and through the first few months, we were chill. Around that time, I started crushing on L, and we got really close really fast and became friends. That was the moment when N showed his true colors. N became disturbing and creepy all of a sudden, talking perverted things and making chaos in the group. One day, L told me this. When N, L, and some other colleagues were having a walk to the college, N started bombarding L with weird questions about me and her, even though there were others around them. We did not go into much detail, but he asked her multiple creepy and inappropriate questions like, are we dating, what am I like, what are we talking about all the time, etc. L told me others felt the awkwardness in the air too, but they decided to ignore him as much as they can. Since L is your typical shy introverted girl, she was really scared and creeped out. I felt really angry and upset that I wasn't there to prevent this situation, but I thought he was just a weirdo for once. Later through college, N would spread lies about me to other colleagues. I noticed some other guys and girls that were hanging out with N started to ignore and denounce me for apparently no reason. It was strange at first, but I connected the dots. Some of my friends that N talked to confirmed it. I stopped communicating with N a few months ago, and I'd only talk if I'm required to. It appeared that he is a true gossip, and he talks negatively and spreads false rumors about anyone that he is not talking at that very moment. I pretty much tried to ignore this whole situation, but recent events really messed it up even more. He is constantly texting L and M, L's best friend, also my good friend, with even more creepy and inappropriate messages. L is so disgusted that she doesn't want to share the details with me, and I actually don't want to know. All L told me was that N was crushing on her, and is now crushing on M. It really creeps me out how one does that. L told me that even N's cousin got involved, that he wants to date L, and he too keeps texting L creepy messages. N's cousin is a year younger, and he told L he's planning to attend the same college as we are, that he can't wait to meet her IRL, and to get to know her better, which terrifies L and M. It sounds like N and his cousin are on the quest to date L and M, and it makes me sick. After all of this, I notice some neckbeard patterns about L. That he, first of all, has that blushy, unshaved neckbeard, unwashed hair, unpleasant sense of humor, and that green hoodie he wears all the time that you can scent wherever he enters a lecture hall. I hope I won't have to meet his cousin. Once again, I really did not expect to meet one of them. Anne is now pretty much a loner, sitting in back rows, usually alone. I don't even feel bad for him. 5. Little background. I'm 19 years old and transgender, male to female, and all of my stories involve this one neckbeard which I shall dub Flubber. I live in Australia, so don't get angry with me when I mention alcohol, seeing as the drinking age here is 18. This story happened just over a year ago. I may not remember everything, but I got a somewhat good memory when it comes to almost dying. For the cast, I will be using easy identifiers that I myself use from time to time. Neko, the weep trash trans girl that writes this story. Joker, my best friend, named that because he looks similar to Joker from Persona 5. Flubber, our gelatinous neckbeard, friend of Joker who gets pity invited. Dali, overly athletic and annoying friend that reminds me of Dahlia from Wakfu. Just not as cool, and he's Joker's friend. On with the story. So it was coming to the end of summer in Australia, and Dali wanted to hold this amazing pool party before we got hit with stupid winter. Joker tried desperately to get me to come, even though I didn't want to, for 2 reasons. 1, I'm very anxious being around people, seeing as I'm transgender. 2, I can't swim, but he managed to convince me by saying that he won't swim either. So off we go to Dali's place. When we got there, well, people were already drunk. I gave Joker this annoyed look before heading inside, and when we got inside, my God, it was kinda chaotic. I won't lie and say I wasn't a little overwhelmed. So much noise and so much pushing and shoving to get around, and according to Joker, the smell wasn't so good either. I have no sense of smell. I don't drink because I hate the taste, so I try to find myself a Coke or something while Joker chats with some of his friends from his soccer team. I finally find an Esky with some Cokes in it. And as I bend down to grab one, I hear, "Why, hello there." I immediately stand up clutching my cold drink and turn around to find this huge dude. Like the type of dude you see on The Biggest Loser. Not sure if you have that show in the US. So I stutter out, "Hi." And he seems a little confused by my voice. I don't exactly have that girly voice yet, unfortunately, but Joker says it's cute. He gave me this creepy smile before saying, "What brings a lovely girl like you to a place like this?" Let's just say that with his size and the way I was being spoken to, I kinda shut down. I didn't say a thing and just walked away. I could hear him mutter something under his breath, but unsure of the specifics. When I return to Joker, he instinctively takes the can and opens it for me, because I always have trouble with the tappy bit. I mention this because unbeknownst to me, Flubber had followed me, and when he saw this, he scoffed. "Getting your cuck boyfriend to do the work for you." "I'm not a girlfriend, I just know Neko can't do it herself." I gave him a playful jab before realizing it was Flubber he was talking to. He does this weird bow thing. "Hello again. My name is Flubber. You walked away before letting me talk to you before." He seemed nice enough, I guess, but he made me uncomfortable and Joker could tell. He nudged me gently. "Why don't we sit by the pool or something?" I squeak out a "yep" before leading the way away from Flubber. This is the point where Dali joins in. He was yelling, splashing in the pool, being a dick and everything. I giggled at his antics and started to talk with Joker about video games. About 5 minutes later, I see Dali get out of the pool. I paid it no mind because it wasn't as important as talking to Joker. Next thing I know, Dali comes up next to me. "Why not join us in the pool?" he said, laughing, as he pushed me into the pool. I don't hate him for it, he was just trying to have fun. I fall into the deep end of the pool and struggle to get to the slide. I had already breathed in water due to not expecting to be dropped into the water. Joker was about to jump into the pool, but then I felt something slam on me, forcing me down and my head smacked against something, knocking me out. When I came to, I had people surrounding me and could hear Joker going ballistic at Flubber. Apparently Flubber saw me struggling and wanted to play the part of the gallant hero. Only problem is he accidentally jumped on me, and I smacked my head on the wall or floor or something. No one knows for sure because it happened so quickly. Joker took me to the doctor straight away after I woke up. Luckily, I only had a massive bruise as long-term damage. Unfortunately, this wasn't the last time I will see Flubber. Though luckily, he didn't almost kill me the other times. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, number 31. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. If you do have a story you'd like to send in, you can send it to kingofthecities@gmail.com. Email address is on the screen, as you possibly don't even watch this video, but it's on the screen. And it's in the description of the video below. I'm pointing, you can't tell, but I'm totally pointing. It's right down there. No, not there. There. Yeah, see where it says show more? You click on that. Yeah, right. Those are all the good stuff in there, all the links and everything in there. Excellent, okay. What was I doing? Oh yes, I was wrapping up this video. At the end of a lengthy recording session, I've got one more thing to record actually. Well, I've recorded all the stories for the True Scary Stories video for tomorrow, but I'm considering swapping one out, so we'll see. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.